So, I just want to highlight this. This is the last part before I stop. Adam Adli, I said, the student activist earlier. The student activist Adam Adli, right? Him. And then Fahmi Reza, this guy. They all have very different life story, different social background, different experience. One is a designer, one is a student activist, and earlier the older Malay writer, yeah, he's just a cultural figure. All of them, somehow during the Bersih period, they all connect with the Bersih conjuncture, the ideological formation, where suddenly the issue of debt loan, the issue of public space, whether KL, do you really have public space? All of this were united as a linkage between different social forces, but under a specific historical moment. They become connected to each other. So, yeah. So at this critical moment of Bersih 2, all these different lives, they come together, or rather they articulated into a common space. And Pak Samad wrote a poem. It's called Senyum Demokrasi. It means a democracy smile, which in Malay, yeah, I mean this is the Malay version, but I'll just share with you the English translation. Yeah, at Dataran Merdeka, the sit-in was the protest of Bersih. They wanted to everyone gather in the Independence Square, sit down and refuse to move as a sign of protest. So the sit-in of noble selves and love and respect for democracy, Bersih's hope abide eternally. So at Dataran Merdeka, democracy is smiling once again. To come back to the earlier image, maybe to give it a clearer sense of what articulation is about. And I will end here, and I invite any questions or comments. This part. So, at Bersih, students and the Occupy people, they put all the tents. They took over for 13 days the Independence Square. Connect with the idea that they will occupy the Independence Square until the day Bersih happened. So imagine Bersih was 28 April. The student and the Occupy movement of Kuala Lumpur, they took over the square on the 13th of April as a way to highlight the other issues that they were fighting for, but all of them were articulated together in the Bersih movement. Yeah, so maybe, yeah, I will stop here. Just to say that this understanding of Malay identity, I think, yeah, maybe this, I forgot one very important point actually. Sorry, one last point. I started, right, that saying that it's a crisis of Malay identity. All these three persons that I talk about, they are Malay. Based on the government's definition, they are Malay. But they are not the kind of Malays that the earlier version, Melayu Baru, right? The Melayu Baru or the Islamic modern, they are new kinds of Malays, new kind of identity. And how do we understand these new kinds of identities? And I want to say Bersih gave them a new imagination of being Malays that they're not just shaped by politics and economics, they're also about democracy, about social and cultural reform, and yeah, the future, I think the future of civil society movement depends on these new forms of Malay political identities that have emerged since the Bersih movement has started in 2007. So at this point, maybe if you have any question, any observation, I would like to hear. Sorry for taking too long.
好，现在是开放问题或者是建议的时间，所以话欢迎各位就直接的发问或发言。如果需要翻译，我可以帮忙，就是就有请大家踊跃发言。
Yeah, that's one question. Maybe you can see who then.
Pass the mic.
Thank you for your talk. And your talk is kind of complicated and long, so I'm afraid I might summarize it incorrectly. So please correct me. Basically, from my assumption is that your argument is that this movement embodies a kind of not only a political conflict, but also a kind of cultural, ideological, like a very much in a social, total sense of crisis in Malaysian society. But I was wondering, like you point out, there are several important figures in a movement, but I feel like I don't see how strongly they can kind of challenge the idea of ethnic kind of essentialism. You know, the coherence of Malayness, like as you said, they're all Malays, and in their kind of counter movements against the government, mostly it's about political decision, but it's not about the mixing of culture or the questioning of Malay identity or even religion, like Islamic kind of regulations. So I was wondering if you can talk more about if there's any strategy or actions against that.
Collect a few. Collect a few.
Okay. 还有其他的吗？
Or should I deal immediately one by one?
Which way is that? It depends. 还有其他的吗？如果没有的话，我们先采取一个问题过后的话一个答案的方式来进行。
Yeah, good question. Of course, I'm only sharing very much from an angle of my own research, and also, actually, I have to also confess that we were also part of the Occupy group at that time, and we had very good, I would say, memorable experiences of that period. But sometimes we feel that period has already sort of like a bit like Gramsci, right? He hoped for some big change, but it didn't happen, and became depressed. And so one of them is in Taiwan, one I'm in Japan. But no, yeah, we will return once we finish our studies. So, but I think, yeah, you're right. People ask me the question, how can this kind of not just the individuals, but the civil society actually bring fundamental change to the structure, right? At the level of both ethnic essentialism and as well as more of a larger cultural transformation, right? Yeah, precisely, I think my talk and as well as my own construction of the answer is not satisfactory yet in terms of how they can provide a solution to the problem. But I think a lot of people don't see the connection between the unresolved crisis of Malay identity and how Reformasi and Bersih represents a developing moments of that crisis that started in 1998. Or let me put it in a different way. people say you can understand Malaysian politics in terms of all the problems they started during Mahathir's period, which was 1980s to the early 2000s, right? And then they said that the election in 2008, the opposition parties start to win some states, and they also win the popular vote, 51% of the popular vote. But one way to think of Malaysian politics or social transformation is that you can say that the whole crisis has lasted for since from 1980 until today. Is the crisis have taken on different expressions, and reformasi was the beginning of how, where a society that only emphasizes political and economic development doesn't have cultural transformation, doesn't have social artistic transformation, that kind of lack, that kind of just political and economic development without the social, cultural and kind of a larger exploration of what it means to be modern. That question was not addressed by Mahathir, and reformasi was a way of trying to provide the lack of civil society development in Malay society. Right? But that itself currently is also being suppressed, because we have still, in many ways, the laws are still unchanged. Election laws are not reformed. We have sedition law, the same laws that you have act like how to say, you cannot criticize the government. If you criticize the government, you will be charged under the Sedition Act. So, for example, Fahmi, this graphic artist, by drawing that, currently he's facing possible sedition charges for making this just a simple poster. Arrest Najib. That means tangkap Najib means arrest Najib, the current prime minister. Just by political expressions like that, you can be arrested for sedition. So in terms of real change, civil society has failed to bring about transformation of the laws. Political laws are still in place. Unfair electoral practices and system is still unchanged. So I recognize that the solution, the problem, this is exactly the problem that Malaysians have right now, is that we want change in society, but we want change through elections. Okay, and I think this is my own personal interpretation. Wanting change, but only change through election, to me is a very, how to say, you're trapped in a modern we want change, but we do not want to do more than just elections, you know. So the whole logic of modernity is, for example, another contradiction. Today, Mahathir, the prime minister who retired, he's actually now working with Gramsci. The latest development in Malaysian civil society is that this former dictatorial prime minister, because he retired and for some reasons, political reasons, his group in the ruling party lost out, he felt that he need to oppose the current prime minister, but he has no way to remove him. So now he has cooperated with Gramsci, trying to find some way to fight against the current sitting Prime Minister. So what I'm saying is that civil society who fought with Mahathir for so long suddenly now accept working hand in hand with this former dictatorial Prime Minister. So that explains the lack of imagination in civil society itself. The very problem that you pose. The cultural and social transformation is stagnated, and Malaysia is not moving forward because there is lack of new social and political imagination on how to break the current condition. Yeah, I'm sorry, I have no answer, but I can only say the situation we're in is precisely because we are so stuck in this narrow framework of how change can happen.